Welcome back to Norm and Sue's Motorcars. A lot of things have changed in the noughties. The announcement of so-called clean diesels certainly suckered me right in. I believed almost without question what BMW and others said. I had a great respect and fondness for BMW engineering. To some extent, I still do. Then came Dieselgate. Now, motorcycle makers had been fiddling the system for years, so the car guys getting caught was no great surprise to me. It was disappointing to find out, though, how the manufacturers colluded to delay emissions reductions. They watered down the Euro standards too, and played down the adverse health effects of traffic pollution. But that's for later. Got a few more BMWs to go, with some surprises thrown in. There's a bit of an overlap from part 1 first, as we have to go back a couple of years to cover Sue's replacement for a 323. So let's get into it. This silver grey facelifted E46 2-litre saloon put out 141 brake horsepower at 6,000 RPM with 200 Newton meters of torque. Not going to set the world ablaze, but the E46 was the most successful 3 Series, with over 3.2 million sold. We did have an annoying problem with door seals becoming dislodged upon closing the rear doors. Doubt that a bit of rubberlube wouldn't sort though. Apart from which, not much comes to mind about this car, Sue's last brand new BMW. Imagine a car of 3 litres capacity that was in practice near as quick as the M5 to 100 miles an hour and used about half the fuel. This asymmetrical dual-turbo 5 Series diesel pumped out 268 brake horse at 4,000 RPM with an astonishing 560 Newton meters of torque at just 2,000 RPM. Paired with a superb 6-speed Steptronic auto box, it was very fast to a ton. Loads of these got chipped at the time, many melted pistons as a result. I left mine standard. BMW had convinced me that their clean diesels were the future. On the road, the car was very good. Fuel consumption in the mid-30s, handling was fabulous, the powertrain was incredible. On the Isle of Man TT circuit heading towards Snaefell, she hit the 155 mph road speed limiter uphill. Around the veranda and the bungalow bridge corners as seen here, I had the car drifting nicely. All the driver aids were turned off. Simply outstanding. But the software was atrocious. Sometimes the sat-nav voice instructions were too late. Following a software update, they were often too early. Useless. Swerving around another pothole one day, I thought, why am I paying over £7,000 a year in benefit-in-kind tax for this car, when the roads are full of potholes and the government seems so wasteful? I called in at Derek Woodman's and sold the thing there and then. What I replaced it with shocked my family to its core. My kids were mortified. They wouldn't accept a lift in it. They were embarrassed when I drove by in it. But I didn't care. I was sick of BMW's crap software. Sure, their engines and chassis were fantastic, but for £7,000 a year BIK? Oh no. The cheapest company car, tax-wise, was a Prius, so I leased a top-of-the-range T-Spirit. Now, power and torque is irrelevant here. We're talking eco, for the time anyway. 76 brake horsepower driving through a continuously variable transmission to the front wheels. 0 to 60 was a lethargic and noisy 10.6 seconds. So what? BIK was just £350 a year. Driving experience was mediocre, mostly. On the motorway at 75 miles an hour, it returned 47 miles per gallon. Rain or shine. But in town or on an undulating road, and this box of 2007 technocrap burst into life. Once or twice, I clocked 100 miles per gallon. This typical Toyota was reliable and boring to non-geeks. Yet I enjoyed eking out those enormous MPG figures, and I loved it for the short time it was in electric mode. usually just a few metres, but in certain conditions a mile or more was possible. It sowed the seed that full electric was the future, but not in 2010 and certainly not with Toyota. Sue's first diesel car was 11 months old. We haven't any pictures of this car, nor even any memory of exactly when we bought it. I guess it was around 2010 or 11. With 141 brake horse on tap and 300 Newton meters of torque, it wasn't quick, but it had gobs of low-down diesel pulling power. A diesel does drive differently. Sue disliked still being in third gear at 30 miles an hour. What she hated, though, was the run-flat tyres. We had so many punches in that car. Coincidence, I'm sure, but bloody expensive. On a slow run back from Edinburgh with a slow puncher, the car achieved 80 miles per gallon. She loved that. Back in the 10s, diesel foaming whilst refuelling in cold weather was a real pain. From half full when the pump would first click out, it could take another 5 tedious, smelly minutes to fill the tank. Fortunately, that was only usually once every 3 weeks. Meanwhile in Munich, those clever chaps at BMW had worked out a way to get a diesel to 109 grams per kilometre CO2 emissions and still be a fun driving experience. Would I be tempted back to the land of terrible sat-nav software? Of course I would. This car was pretty brisk and great handling. You really had to thrash it to get below 50 miles per gallon, and I mean over 90 miles an hour continuously. On a very sunny day in the summer of 2011, I had all day to get to Gatwick Airport and achieved over 85 miles per gallon. For a reasonable £700 a year BIK and just £10 a year road tax, I got a really good, fun and practical car. Can't recall any problems with it, except the paint. If you didn't get bird droppings off your car within the hour, the mark was with you forever. Luckily, there are only 25 million seagulls in Blackpool, so hey. After 3 years, it was time to change. It was my wife who suggested trading in a 318D and buying the 320ED off my company. It made financial sense, so that's what we did. Sue ran that car to well over 100,000 miles with no issues. Still pushing their eco-diesels, BMW tempted me with their 5 Series offering. This is all pre-Dieselgate, remember. I trusted my German friends. Emissions, now Euro 6, were 119 grams per kilometre, so BIK was still under £1,000 a year. I could stomach that. This car wasn't an exhilarating drive, but it was okay. A white van man ran into the back of me. Whilst I'd been stationary for some moments, he was texting. The airbags and seatbelt pretensioner fired give me a lovely mark right across my torso. Not that I'm complaining, I'm just saying it wasn't subtle. He wanted to pay for the damage, as he'd had a few scrapes and said his boss would surely fire him. The quote was £18,000. Don't know if White Van Scroat got the sack. He deserved to have. The Prius had gotten me into thinking electric. Was it really viable? Possibly, but the offerings in 2014 didn't entice me. Nissan Leafs, Renault Zoes, etc. The plug-in hybrid i8 was marketed as a future. A 237 brake horsepower 3-cylinder petrol engine driving the rear wheels, a 120 horsepower electric motor on the front axle, giving 357 brake horsepower in total. Top speed was limited to 155, 0 to 60 was 4.2 seconds. The best of both worlds with up to 21 miles of range in pure electric mode. Emissions tests for plug-in hybrids are shite. No way was this car 49 grams per kilometre CO2, nor was the fuel consumption 134 miles per gallon. It was all total rubbish, because a test schedule required the petrol engine to run only for a few seconds during the whole 7-kilometre test cycle. Totally unrepresentative. I felt very privileged to be the owner of one of the first batch of 200 into the UK. It was the centre of attention. People driving by would take photographs. Someone would always come and talk to you at service areas. Everyone thought it was electric. It was not. Performance was exciting, but not scary. The engine sound was awesome. The chassis, lovely. Fuel consumption was about 47 miles per gallon, driven sensibly of course. The electric powertrain was thorough pants. Not once did the 21 miles electric range materialise, and I do know how to get good range, thank you. Electric efficiency is something that German manufacturers still, in 2025, have not solved. Almost every time I went out, something went wrong with this car. Fuel filler cap refusing to open was favourite. Failed coolant expansion tank level switch. Brake caliper issues of all sorts. Windows failing to close properly. Every bloody time there was something different. I felt like James Bond driving through the Alps in it though. Those trendy doors never clouted a garage roof or adjacent car. They were a very clever design. After 3 years, I began to see that this car was not the future. Hell, it wasn't even the present. When BMW announced the last i8s were to be sold at 20% discount, it had to go. The best price I could get was £36,000. Over 70% depreciation in 40 months. The Outlander PHEV was very practical and comfortable. Had a tow bar for taking Gilbert, my daughter's horse, to the odd show, and it was the first plug-in hybrid to have rapid charging. That's what made it for me. The motor was old school. A 4-cylinder 1998cc 16-valve motor pumped out just 119 brake horsepower and 186 Nm of torque. As detuned as that, it should have been economical. It wasn't. The claims of 148 miles per gallon and 44 grams per kilometre of CO2 emissions, as previously shown, were a joke. The electric powertrain was 280 brake horsepower electric motors, but total maximum output with the petrol engine as well was limited to just 200 brake horsepower. That electric setup was far better than the i8. The claimed 32 miles EV range was regularly achieved. I did enjoy this car. We never failed to cram into it as much as we had to carry. Old-fashioned dipsticks for oil and washer fluid, no service lights are out like that. Took me about 30 years, yet it was totally reliable. Being a bit of a geek, I charged up whenever I could via the CHAdeMO rapid connector. This would take the battery back up to 80% in 18 minutes. A normal person would never have charged as much as I did. However, those Herculean efforts resulted in an average fuel consumption of 70 miles per gallon over the 70,000 miles I owned it. That was wholly down to the good EV setup. Coming home from Loughborough on a stormy night, the EV battery was flat. On this petrol-only 130-mile run at the legal limit plus VAT, she slurped fuel at 22 miles per gallon, which is as grim efficiency for a petrol engine as BMW's electric traction was in the i8. Sue had always had saloons, but now wanted an SUV. Enter the nearly new X1 2-litre diesel with 4-wheel drive. 187 brake horsepower, a 0 to 60 time of 7.6 seconds, an awful 8-speed auto transmission, 50 miles per gallon. That about sums it up. To be fair, it had good carrying capacity and, well, nothing else to say about it really. Just another boring diesel SUV using more fuel than it should and polluting the air more than the manufacturer claimed. We were starting to learn about the emissions cheating devices fitted to diesels. The PHEVs had whetted my appetite for full electric. Could this quirky BM do the job? It now had a claimed range of around 175 miles. It might. Turned out to be a pleasant drive with impressive acceleration away from the lights, and it had good luggage capacity. My red i3 arrived in November 2018, my first pure electric car. No running in, blinking magic. Off to Loughborough the next day, only 130 miles, should be easy. My car was spec'd with a heat pump, but it can't have been that good because consumption on that cold first trip to Loughborough was very high. In summer it would get to Loughborough without stopping. The bed and breakfast where I stayed had a 13 amp plug in the car park, so I charged there overnight. Runs further afield needed an A, B and C plan if underpants were to stay dry. Went all over the UK in that little car. Software was usual BMW shit, but it was a great runabout. The risk was, if chargers were occupied or broken, things could get stressful quite quickly. Legacy car makers like BMW have a dealer network that has to make a profit. In reality, EVs require very little servicing, so they invent stuff. At 2 years old, my i3 required its first service, a brake fluid and general safety check. They charged me £295. No itemised bill, just made up stories. Bye bye my last BMW. Made in Fremont, California, and considered to be of questionable build quality. Mine had 2 delivery faults, both easily and quickly fixed, a missing luggage tray bolt and tracking out a little. The paint wasn't German quality, but it wasn't bad either. The panel gaps were okay, if not immaculate. The 60-mile drive home was a revelation, smooth, quiet and as fast as hell. No A, B and C charging plans now. Sat-nav took me right to the Tesla superchargers. No app, no cards, no buttons to press, just plug it in. Charging generally takes 20 to 25 minutes every 200 to 250 miles. 150 to 250 kilowatt reliable, no-fuss charging and the lowest prices all across Europe. It was a game changer. I went to the Outer Hebrides, Ireland, Europe, including Nordkap, which is 300 miles into the Arctic. Never had a problem. Never waited for the car because I used that time to eat, drink and waz. This car, which did not have a heat pump, was still amazingly efficient. I drove home the 300 miles from Swanage once on a single charge. Consumption was far better than the BMW i3, and this car was twice the size and twice the power. Servicing was once every 2 years. The nice Tesla man turned up on my driveway and did the necessary work, which wasn't much, for £85. Proper job. I charge at home mostly, warm and cool my car via the phone app, don't need a key. It even has regular software updates and genuine free enhancements, all whilst parked at my house. Dream on, BMW. Sue's X1 replacement was a new Tesla Model Y long-range dual motor. Similar powertrain to my Model 3, so range was not quite so good in this much larger car. Still quick, motorway range was about 250 miles, over 300 on other roads. The new Tesla Octavalve raised efficiency, being able to move heat or cold between battery, motors, cabin or outside air. World beating. Still is. On the motorway we seem to get 3.6 to 3.8 miles per kilowatt hour, maybe 3.2 into a stormy headwind. After 3 hours driving, the mega reliable Tesla superchargers would put back the energy used in less than half an hour. Time for bog and a brew. Teslas can use any other charger as well, giving us an immense number of chargers to choose from. The car swallowed up luggage with its enormous boot and useful frunk. Where it proved less than ideal was in its turning circle. It is very difficult to park in some small UK car parks. A suspension squeak was sorted under warranty. It's a known problem. Tesla support has been very good, except on the day it was delivered. Filthy with 2 dings in the bodywork. They did sort it out in 3 days, but it was a nasty experience at the time. Both in 2023 and 2024, the Tesla Model Y was the world's best-selling car of any powertrain type. Second place were petrol Toyotas at 20 grand cheaper. Says it all, really. Finally, my second Model 3 long range was made in Shanghai rather than California. Build quality was much better. It also had the new octovalve with heat pump. Weight was reduced by a few kilos too. Range was therefore improved to 389 miles WLTP from 326 of my previous one. Currently at over 21,000 miles, I've had no issue with this car. It's a real beauty. I paid £1,500 extra to unlock the acceleration boost, improving the 0 to 60 time by half a second without affecting the great range. Whilst touring Scotland in the summer of 2023, it was easily getting the claimed 390 miles to a tank. Efficiency is the key. Why not a BMW EV, I hear you chant? Let's compare the touring Tesla with the sportiest BMW i4. Teslas are lighter. A Model 3 is 400 kilos lighter than an i4. That's the weight of your girlfriend. The i4 M50 is about the same speed but has less range. The i4 is 20 grand more expensive without the extras you get standard in a Tesla. You joking? Teslas have a dedicated world-class charging network. BMW do not. Unlike Tesla, BMW have a dealer network which must survive. Yet EVs don't need much servicing, so they make it up, and you, dear customer, shall pay for it. Tesla technology is years ahead, in my opinion. From the software to the efficiency of the inverters, converters and motors, legacy automotive makers cannot compete. In 2024, the Model 3 was upgraded again. Now another 7% better range, with even better interior fit, including a rear display. When the time comes to swap, I'll have one. From 1250 Avenger to Tesla Model 3 in 42 years. Wow. I mean, I loved my BMs back in the day. Rear-wheel drive in a world of front-wheel drive. The first cars to have proper digital electronic engine management and ABS. Superbly balanced cars with some of the best engines on the planet. Good times. Then came climate change, a ruse I absolutely did not believe in for a long time. The car industry planned to clean up with hydrogen engines and fuel cells. Yet, back in the noughties, I'd have bet on hydrogen. 20 years on, what few hydrogen stations do exist in the UK are being closed. Going Tesla has worked well for me. It's very fast. Running costs are very low. My car averages about 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour. Charging on the cheap rate overnight at 8p a kilowatt hour, it's about the fifth of the cost of petrol. Charging off my solar further reduces the cost. Servicing is now only every 4 years. Most of what is written in the press and on social media is total rubbish. Had it been as the haters said, would I not have gone back to ICE? Of course I would. After Dieselgate, I did my homework. Whilst not perfect, EVs are very significantly better for the environment, and those of us that must breathe air. Take care on the roads, you lot. Thanks for watching.